foreign policy, domestic policy, and international policy as well. Thoughts and comments on that, brother?
That's right. These folks are against national sovereignty. They're against national sovereignty. They don't want American patriots. They don't want libertarian people who are constitutionalists and uphold the unalienable natural rights of human beings. You see, and so if they label us as such, we know who we are. We know what our ancestors have fought and died for and struggled for up until this day. We know the truth, and we can tell those exactly who we are. So Martin Luther King says, there comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over.
That's right.
And men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. See, I see these quotes from our mayor. If she expects unrest, see, that's part of plunging us deeper into this abyss of despair.
That's right.
Why should we expect that?
Right.
You
that's
see?
Right.
And so,
deal with the conditions so that you don't have that. As Dr. King talked about, you talk about the long, hot summer, but you've had the long, cold winter in which you haven't prepared for the long, hot summer.
The whole winter.
Yes, sir. Let me take a few more of these calls with your permission, all right? With that, let me come back to the lines. 410-761-1592. If you want to get in on the conversation before we begin to bring the conversation to an end. And, of course, we'll come back in, talk more about this day, Independence Day, the Declaration of Independence and its meaning to us as a people inside the United States of America and the real patriots of this country. And what does it mean, as I said before, talking about this release of Jay-Z, the Holy Grail, Magna Carta, the Holy Grail. How does that tie into the Freemasonry? How does that tie into the 13 colonies? How does that tie into the Prince Hall Masons? How does that tie in to the Illuminati, Skull and Bones, and others who are part of what we have existing inside of this country right now? How does that tie into the Federal Reserve celebrating 100 years of being in existence right now? Some real international thugs, gangster banksters. How does that tie into the IRS, which came into existence the same year as the Federal Reserve? And how does that tie into the ADL, which came into the existence the same year as the Federal Reserve and the FBI and the IRS as well? With that, let me come back to the lines before we go a little further into this conversation. 410-761-1592. And let me give you this clip that I wanted to give you from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as I just mentioned those items as we're talking about history. Then we coming back to the lines. It's Independence Day.
In 1961, Malcolm X talked with the great brother who wrote the book Roots, Alex Haley. And Alex Haley, writing for Reader's Digest, interviewed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. And they said to Alex Haley that some of our original fathers who were brought into America were in fact Muslims. And that the slave masters who historically had come into contact with the Muslims as Islam spread over the known world from the 7th to the 11th centuries and black men rose to power in Islam. And since these blacks who were Muslims were conquering armies of white folk, when the New World was established, they did not want any Islam taught to black people or to white people, even though the founding fathers were Muslim Shriners, meaning that they had 33 degrees of the circle of knowledge. You have to appreciate that context in order to understand the profound effect that Malcolm X had on the black struggle as a Muslim. All right?